G'day and welcome back to Outback Action Figures. Now with Spider-Man Brand New Day still just unstoppable in the theatres, I figured why don't we take a look at some of these Spider-Man figures here. There's a few that I've just sort of had piling up in the backlog of unopened figures, so this seemed like a perfect chance to take a look at them. So, I think we'll start off with Kaine here, and then we'll work through the other ones. So to start this off, as we can see, this is on the retro card design, where it's got that very 90s sort of classic artwork and everything on the back there. And you just get the big clear window in the front where you get to see everything. So it's just a figure, a couple of accessories. If we take a look at the back, this shows a few, well, everything else that was in this line of figures. Now, so far this is the only one I've got from this particular line. But yeah, it was just a bunch of random ones that come out, and I just thought, well, this guy looks cool, so we'll grab him and take a look. It's got a little description on there. I'll pause that if you want to have a read. And we get some artwork here. I think that's just the same as the one on the front. Yeah, same image there. And it just shows here that, you know, you can swap the hands out on either side. And then it's just got all the other typical, you know, legal jargon and warnings and whatever. But yeah, that's about it for the packaging. So let's cut him open and see what we've got. Alright, so there we go. Got him out of the box, and it's just a figure and the two hands there, as we said before. But I'll pop it all out of here and we'll have a proper look. Alright, there we go. We've got the figure and the hands out of the box. So let's take a closer look. Now for the accessories, it's just these two hands, as I mentioned, but he has one of these sort of more, you know, dramatic gesturing hands. And then for the other side, it's just a more sort of relaxed, open palm. As you see there. Yeah, so it just gives you a little bit of variety, different posing, stuff like that, you know, just give him a different look. Now straight out of the box, he just has a couple of fists on there, which, you know, as you've heard me say before, I feel like all figures should come with a set of fists as a bare minimum, so he does. I'll give that a tick, that's a bonus. Yeah, as for the costume, it's a fairly simple design, just a sort of dark grey bodysuit kind of thing, you know, skin tight. You can see all the abs and musculature and everything showing through. You know, fairly solid muscular legs there as well. But then with this sort of bluish green kind of webbing design over the top of it, and then the sort of spikes sticking out the legs here and at the arms. Now, of course, we have the bright pink cape, you can't miss that. But it is a solid piece, so it's just, you know, it's sculpted to be flowing in the wind that way. Nothing wrong with that, but it is slightly limited in terms of your posing. But yeah, it still looks good. It's nicely sculpted. It's not actually painted, but it's just done in that pink plastic. And then with the, you know, strap that goes under the arm here. And then for the face, again, it's just that same sort of dark grey, you know, base coat with the blue webbing stuff over the top, and then the hair all flowing across the top of that. So yeah, fairly simple design, and look, I'll be totally honest, I'm not really familiar with this particular character. I'm sure I've seen him in some of the, like, the old 90s cartoons, or, you know, just old 90s comics and stuff. I'm sure I've seen artwork of him, but I don't really know much about the actual character himself. But this was one I just saw it and thought, you know, it's a cool design, and I just figured he would look good on the shelf with the rest of the Spider-Man display. We'll take a quick look at the articulation. So, you can tilt his head forward pretty far. Goes back a little bit, but then, of course, the hair runs into the back of the cape here. So not really much in the way of tilting back. You get a bit of rotation from side to side, but again, that hair is quite thick, so it kind of runs into the edge of the, well, the edge of the shoulders, you know, the cape here. So not a huge amount of range there, unfortunately. And now we're going to have the same problem with the arms. They can raise up most of the way, but again, with that being a solid piece, the cape that's draped over his shoulder, you can't lift it up all the way or spin all the way around. But aside from that, you get a bicep swivel there. They do have the double pinless elbow joints, so that works out pretty well. That comes up pretty much the whole way. There we go. Now for the wrist, you get full rotation, and on the fist there, they go in and out. Now for the cape, like I said, it's a solid piece, so that doesn't really move. It's not pegged in at the back. It looks like it's just attached. Well, if we pop the head off, let's see. Okay, yeah, sorry. It's not actually attached. It was just sitting over the neck joint there. Basically, the head was the only thing holding it on. The sort of strap-looking piece here was just like a loose piece around, you know, around his chest and shoulder, basically, not actually attached to the cape. But it's still, you know, it gives off the impression that they are one piece, so it still looks good. Well, while we got that off, I'll go through the rest of the articulation anyway. I'll leave that bit on. But yeah, so you do get the butterfly joints on the shoulders there, so that gives you a bit of range swinging back and forward, as we can see. Now that probably will be slightly hindered once the cape goes back on. Maybe not quite so much on this side where it's flowing out. But otherwise, yeah, not too bad there. Now you get the ab crunch in the middle, so it can tilt back, but then it just kind of springs forward again. So you can't really get it to stay in that tilted back position. And then you can crunch forward a bit. But yeah, again, it's sort of, you can push it forward and then it just bounces back up. So I don't know if the plastic is a bit soft. I'm not sure exactly why that won't stay in position. But anyway, you get the full rotation at the waist. For the legs, they don't seem to drop down at all, but you get the thigh cut there. So you get full rotation at the thigh joint. You get the double pinless knees as well. So yeah, it pretty much comes all the way up. Just the legs are quite thick at the thigh and the calf, so they sort of run into each other there. But aside from that, it's not too bad. You get the tilt back with the feet and forward, and then you get the ankle pivot on there as well. So yeah, feet work pretty well, and you can split out to the sides pretty good. Yeah, that's about it for him. Well, for the articulation anyway. Pop this and the head back on. Alright, and for the hands, they just simply pop out. There's just, the normal wrist pegs on there. Let's see that. And that one is, they're both in and out hinges on those as well. Same as the fists were. Pop this out and try that one as well. And well, yeah, you can see that as another. So they're all just in and out hinges on these, not up and down. Well, he doesn't have a weapon holding hand, so we don't really need to worry about that. But yeah, that gives you a slightly different look for him. This could be a more sort of reaching, grabbing hand. This is a more, just a simple open palm gesture, however you want to use it. Gives you a little bit of variety, not a huge amount, but as I said, I'm not massively familiar with this character anyway, so he's not a major highlight of the collection. It was something I thought that looked cool, and I'm just going to chuck it in the shelf with the rest of the Spider-Man characters. So anyway, that's it for him. We'll move on to the next one. So next up, we've got the Spider-Man 2099. Now, as you can see, this is obviously another one on the retro card design, so I won't go over all the packaging, but we'll just have a quick look. He has, obviously, his own artwork on the front here. The rest of it is all the same. On the back, we get that same artwork as well from the front. Quick little description there. Pause it for a sec if you want to have a read. And then again, on this side, it just shows how you can swap out the hands on there. It looks like he might come with two sets of spare hands, including the third set that are already on the figure. Anyway, this shows some of the other ones that are in this line. Now, it looks like we've got Spider-Man 2099, and I have got the Spider-Venom as well. I didn't really bother with any of the other ones. I'll just pick and choose the ones I like, and not have to worry about grabbing every single figure. But anyway, so yeah, the packaging was pretty much all the same as the last one, aside from his own little different details there. So, let's cut it open and take a closer look. Alright, there we go. That's him out of the box. So we get a bit of a closer look. Like I said, is the figure there, plus he does have two extra sets of hands. And we get a bit of a look at his cape on the back, but as usual, we'll pop it all out and let's have a closer look. Alright, so here we go. Got him out of the box. Now, obviously, like I said before, there's the figure himself. He has his cape here, which just plugs in on the back. And then he has the two extra sets of hands. So we'll have a look at those first. Now, he does come with, the first set of hands are more like sort of grabbing, almost claw hands. They don't quite come to like actual claw fingertips. They're not quite that sharp, but they just give off that sort of impression of, sort of more grasping, grabbing hands, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, they are sculpted quite nicely. Now, the cool thing is with the red stripe that goes down his arm and then ends in the little arrows on the back of his hands here, they've included a red sort of wrist peg on this joint. So instead of it being blue like the rest of the outfit, it does blend in with that red stripe that runs down along the side. So that's quite nicely done, the way they've incorporated that. So if it was blue instead, it would sort of break up the look of the sculpt a bit, when you're actually posing with the hands and stuff. So anyway, yeah, definitely give him credit for that. That's a good little decision in the engineering process. The second set he comes with here, these are more like your typical Spider-Man kind of wall-crawling hands. So we got the fingers all spread out like that. Like I said, these are more for your wall-crawling sort of posing and stuff like that. So anyway, yeah, that's it for the hands. And like I said before, he just comes with the fists as well. So yeah, decent range of hands there. And then the cape. And this is done pretty nicely. It's just a small sort of little webbing cape that hangs down the back. Again, it is a little bit sort of swept off to one side, similar to Kaine from just before. But the sculpt on it is quite, fairly nicely detailed. The little sort of tattered edges and stuff look pretty cool. It looks like it's just cast in a sort of almost translucent, not quite, sort of clear, well, not clear, but yeah, almost translucent sort of plastic, but it does have this sort of shiny, like slightly blue pearlescent effect on it. I'm not quite sure if the camera is picking up on that. But, yeah, it looks quite nice. Well detailed, and, yeah, I don't think it's actually paint. Maybe it's just the plastic itself, but it does have this, yeah, slightly shiny, like, pearlescent kind of finish to it. But anyway, It's well done. It's soft-ish kind of rubber. You're not really going to be able to... Well, not rubber, plastic, sorry. Yeah, a soft-ish kind of plastic. It doesn't really seem like you're going to be able to, you know, pose it or anything, but yeah, you can move it a little bit if you ever need to. Perhaps you could heat it up and put it into a different position and then sort of let it set like that. I'm not sure exactly if that would work, but you could try. So yeah, we'll just plug that into the back. It's just a simple, you know, peg there and a socket on the back. So plug that in, and there we go. Now you can sort of swivel that a bit off to each side if you wanted to, you know, give it a more of a windswept effect. But I think it looks fine just hanging, you know, relatively straight down the middle there. It seems to work pretty well. I don't think it's meant to be a massive, big flowing cape. It's more just to give that little bit of an impression, you know, a little bit sticking out the sides when you look at it from the front. But anyway, it's, yeah, it works well. So I'll just leave that on there for now. We'll go through the rest of the figure. Now, this particular design, the Spider-Man 2099, my first introduction to that was from... There was a game, I believe it was on the Xbox 360, called Shattered Dimensions, where you got to play as 4 different Spider-Man characters. Now, obviously, you had your classic, just regular Spider-Man. You had the Ultimate Spider-Man, which was like the sort of slightly purplish, you know, symbiote suit, the black and white one. There was the Spider-Noir, which is the black and white, you know, like sepia tone, black and white kind of design. And then you had this guy. Wait, did I already say him? Well, anyway, yeah, you had 4 different versions. Spider-Man 2099 was one of them. That was my introduction to the character, and yeah, he was just a pretty cool version of him. It's not my favourite one ever, but sort of similar to Kaine from before. He's just a good-looking design, and I thought he would look pretty cool on the shelf as well. For his mask, it is a fairly unique design just for him, where most Spider-Mans have, you know, the eye lenses, and then the rest of the costume is fairly flat. This one actually has, like, this sculpted, like, sort of spiky design. I mean, it seems very typical of the 90s. Everything was sort of exaggerated and spiky, and, well, as you can see, he's sort of like Batman, has the spikes coming out the back of his arms here. Yeah, he has more of like a sort of skull design on the front rather than a typical spider. But that's quite well done as well. You know, the paint job is all fairly clean on here. I can't see any sort of splotchiness or any smudges or anything like that. So yeah, definitely give him credit for that. I know, you know, Marvel Legends... Oh, sorry, if I didn't say before, these are all Marvel Legends figures. And I know they're not like the greatest quality figures ever in the world, but I do give them credit, you know, where it's due. I believe they've done a fairly good job here. Like I said, you know, the paint all looks fairly clean to me. Yeah, can't really see any bits missing or anything like that. Now, it is a fairly simple design, just a blue bodysuit with a couple of red details on there. But the red details that are on there are painted quite nicely. And so, yeah, like I said, I'll give him credit for that. But yeah, anyway, the bits on the mask, those are sculpted on and painted nicely. There's no missing bits there. The chest logo is done quite nicely as well, like I mentioned. The stripes down the side, they're all okay. There's like the tiniest little dot there that's gone a bit off. But it's like barely even noticeable. I don't even think the camera can pick it up. It's the tiniest bit just in front of my thumb there. Anyway, yeah, it's not something... You put it on the shelf, you're never even going to see that. So anyway, yeah, this is actually a bit of an upgrade because I bought a previous version of this guy secondhand like years ago when I first started collecting Marvel Legends. And it's fine, but it's a bit more... It looks sort of like a more skinny version. Not that he has to be a massive, jacked, you know, muscular body. Which, I mean, this one is muscular, but it's not like Hulk size or anything like that. You know, obviously he's not that big. But it does feel like a definite upgrade over the previous one. So anyway, we'll take a look at the articulation. Now, not having any hair or anything like that sticking out the back, he can lean his head back a little bit. And he can tilt forward. You do get full rotation on there, of course. And he can get a little bit of tilting from side to side. Not a huge amount. And you get the butterfly joints in the shoulders. They, you know, can go way back. Pop the cape off for a sec, just so it's out of the way. So yeah, those butterfly joints in the shoulders can go way back, as I was saying. And it's good that the chest logo continues onto that joint too. So, you know, when you move it back and forward, it's not breaking up the design. Well, at least not too much anyway. But yeah, so that gives you a bit of back and forward motion. Now, of course, the wrist comes... the shoulder comes up not quite to 90 degrees. It kind of runs into the top of the sort of traps there. But yeah, it's pretty good. It can do the full spin around, of course, and as usual, we get the bicep swivel there. Now, unfortunately, that does break up the sculpt. Well, not the sculpt, the red line. That breaks up a little bit when you twist there, but obviously that's just the sacrifice you make to get articulation in the joints. But yeah, as usual there, we have the double pinless elbows as well. If I can just get that top one, there we go. So yeah, again, that comes up most of the way, which is pretty good. And for the wrist, as usual, they do the full rotation around, and they hinge in and out. So that's it for the arms. Now, we do have a little bit of a different setup than last time. Instead of just the waist crunch here, we do have the upper torso joint as well. So that lets you tilt side to side. You can rotate and tilt back and forward as well. And then you have the crunch at the bottom, gives you, well, yeah, you can tilt way back, and I'm assuming way forward as well. Yep, pretty good. And like I was saying, yeah, you get the rotation from that top joint there, so he doesn't have a cut at the waist for the rotation. It just goes through, the top part instead. Now for the legs, it feels like they do actually drop down from the hip a little bit, not like Kaine, the last one. It doesn't make a huge difference, but it just, it allows a little bit of extra clearance to kick forward. You can go back just a tiny bit, comes out to the sides, do a decent split again. And we get the thigh cut up the top here. So you get full rotation there. There's the double pinless knees as well, as usual. And that comes, pretty much all the way up as well. And we do get a little a shin sort of boot swivel as well. Not that he's actually wearing boots, it's like just all one solid costume. But it still, lets you swivel the foot there a bit. Well, the whole lower leg. You get the, ankle pivot on there, of course. You can tilt back and forward. And then we have a toe joint as well. Gives you a little bit extra. So in general, pretty decent articulation, especially for a Spider-Man character. You can do, I believe you could get just about any pose you're trying with him. And we'll swap out the hands and just see how they go. So, just like last time, the simple little wrist peg there, they pop out. Oop, shit. Destroying the scenery while I'm at it. Alright, I've just got rid of that little desk and chair and stuff that was in the background, just so we don't knock everything over again. But anyway, let's try out some of these other hands here, like I was saying before. So that pops in just nicely, there we go. And we'll test out one of the other ones, just so we can try that as well. So again, these are both the in and out hinges, just like the fists were. And again, that fits, like I was saying before, the stripe that comes down the side, it follows along nicely with the red wrist peg there. So you get that one. Like I was saying, that's more of your wall crawling hand. So if he's like climbing up a wall, for example, that's obviously where you'd use that one. And then this is the more sort of grabbing, gesturing hand, or, reaching for something. But again, it just gives you a bit of variety. So you're not just stuck with the one pose the whole time. So I'd say that's pretty much it for him. And let's try the last one. Alright, now for the last one, we'll take a look at this Spider-Venom. Now, I'm not really familiar with this particular version, but I'm a sucker for this black and white, sort of anything Venom design. So this one just looked like it would be another cool addition to the shelf. Now, he does come on the sort of big card back as well, slightly different to the other retro versions from before. This is a more modern take on the design. The big logo at the top and the big webbing in the background is a bit reminiscent of the, the Spider-Verse, the animated movies. I don't believe he's from that. I think this is like a comic design, but it does sort of, evoke that kind of design at the top here. But anyway, so we get some comic artwork on the side, Spider-Venom, Marvel Legends series. You get the same sort of big clear window in the front. You can see the figure and everything he comes with. We'll take a look at the back, and again, same like the Spider-Man 2099. It shows the other figures on the series. We get a digital render of the figure up here, and then a bit of a description. So pause that and have a read. Anyway, that's it for the box. Let's cut him open. So that just gives you a little bit of a better look at the background design. Like I was saying, it may not be from the actual animation, but it does give off that kind of feeling. Anyway, we've already looked at the box. Let's check out the actual figure. So there we see, we have the figure himself. Now this does seem to have the most accessories out of all the ones we've looked at so far. So he comes with an unmasked head, 2 extra sets of hands, and then there is actually this chain as well that comes with him. But as always, we'll crack it all out and let's have a closer look. Alright, so there we go. Obviously, we have the figure out of the box, and all of his bits and pieces. Now, he does come with a fair bit of stuff, and they look to be, relatively decent quality. The most obvious one is this big chain here. I mean, most obvious as in it's the largest one. The least obvious in terms of, I don't know why this particular version of Spider-Man or Venom or whatever, I don't know why he comes with a chain. I picture this as more like a Ghost Rider sort of thing. It even has, the little clip at the end is kind of open to attach, the Robbie Reyes version, where I'm sure he has other little tools and things that clip onto the end of it. Or maybe you can just clip it onto itself on the other end here. Oh, actually, maybe it's just for that. Oh, there we go. So you can just make it into one big loop. And it's decently sculpted and everything, but it's not exactly posable. It is soft and bendy, but it doesn't stay in that position. like most of the stuff with Marvel Legends, whether it's their capes or other bits and pieces, if they do them in softer plastic, they don't have like bendy wires inside them or anything like that. So, yeah, again, like, it's cool. Not complaining. I think it's a cool accessory, but I'm just not sure exactly why he comes with a chain. I guess the other slight downside to this is that he doesn't actually have any grip hands to hold onto it. You've got these loops here, which, looks like it goes around his arm or over his shoulder or whatever. But then, yeah, I mean, he comes with fists. We'll go through the hands now anyway, I'll show you. So obviously, yeah, like I said, he has fists already on the figure. He has this set of, like, web shooting, sort of thwip hands, as we can see here, fairly classic Spider-Man pose for shooting the webs. Yeah, so just like the last one, he has these wall-crawling hands. And I guess, you could kind of wrap the chain around this, but, yeah, there's no actual grip hand to really hold onto it properly. But anyway, since we're looking at these, the sculpt is just the same as the last one, the, wall-crawling design. The paint seems fairly clean. These sort of spiky stripes along there, they're all done nicely. Same with the other hands too. For the actual figure himself, basically, if you've seen Venom, if you've seen the symbiote suit, then you've already seen this design. So, thanks, good night. No, I'm kidding. We'll have a closer look. Now, this is slightly different. Everything else is very reminiscent of just the standard, Venom design, the black suit with the white spider over the top. Or, the symbiote suit, of course. Same sort of thing. And, like I said at the start, I don't exactly know this specific version. It feels like a more modern take on it. I don't know exactly. I'll have to look it up. But, yeah, like I said, I'm a sucker for this Venom design. Black and white just looks awesome. Yeah, that spiky sort of stripe thing on the wrists, on the back of the hands, like I mentioned with the other ones, the accessories, that does appear to be a new design element. Normally, Venom and the symbiote suit just sort of have like a white square on the back of a black hand. I don't know, this sort of stripy thing seems to be new. And the white bit around the feet, that is definitely new as well. That almost gives him like sort of sneakers kind of appearance for his feet. Which is cool, I guess, just a different take on the design. Not bad in any way, but yeah, just different. So yeah, again, with the paint, it all seems fairly clean. The design on the back here and on the front. The eyes up the top, they're sculpted in lenses and they're painted nicely as well. Again, it's a fairly simple design, just a black, bodysuit with a white spider logo and white eyes. So yeah, not really a huge amount to talk about there in terms of the design. For the articulation, it's fairly standard, I believe. So yeah, you can tilt back, you can tilt forward, of course. You get the rotation all the way around. And it gets a tiny bit of tilt from side to side, but not much. I think it's just on a ball joint. Yeah. Unfortunately, with these type of ball joints, when it's just a sort of swivel back and forth like this, you don't really get much in the way of tilt from side to side. But it's not too bad. Pop it on. Alright, so the arms, similar to last time, you get the butterfly joints here, so they can, tilt back and forward a bit there. And you get the full rotation at the shoulder. It comes up to not quite 90 again. A little bit lower. You get the bicep swivel, full rotation there, and you get the double pinless elbows, as usual with most of the new Marvel Legends. That comes up most of the way. Oh, yeah, basically all the way up. And same with the wrist, same as before. We have the full rotation and then hinge in and out. There we go. Now, this torso setup appears to be the same as the 2099 we just looked at. So he has the cut at the top here, which gives you, the twist, rotation. Unfortunately, that does break up the design a bit, but that's, it's just how it is. That's just physics, Paint can't move when the plastic does. Anyway, you get the idea. Now, he does have the cut at the lower waist here as well, so combine those two together, and he can crunch back fairly well. And forward pretty good as well. And that's when, like I said, you get the rotation at the top. There's no waist cut down the bottom for that. Now, the legs do feel a bit smoother, just in terms of the musculature here. They're not like every single little sinew and joint and everything. It's, a little bit of a smoother finish on there. Again, not a bad thing, it's just different. But, yeah, you do get the thigh cut there, so there's a full swivel on that one. The double pinless knees, so that comes all the way up. And same like last time, we have the boot cut sort of swivel there as well, in the shin. That gives you plenty of swivel at the bottom of the foot as well. Speaking of the feet, they can tilt back and basically all the way forward. And then you do get the ankle pivot rotation on there as well. A slight little bit of paint splotch just on that edge there. I didn't notice until I started moving that and it caught the light. So nothing major, but yeah, just a little bit. We could easily get some black paint and touch that up. Do the kick forward with the leg. Goes back. Actually not too bad. Usually they barely move back at all. And then he kicks pretty much straight out to the side, so you get a good split there as well. But yeah, that's it for the articulation. Let's try out some of the accessories. Well, let's have a proper look at the spare head. We missed that before when I was going through the other bits. So we have a unmasked Peter Parker head here. It does have a slightly more stylized, like, not quite anime, but yeah, just a different sort of almost cartoony kind of look to it. But it's nice sculpt, you know, the hair looks pretty good up on top. The face looks decent as well. And one thing, it wasn't immediately obvious in the package, but he does have this, a bit of the sort of symbiote, like, sticking up the side of his face here as well. So because the neck on the actual figure is all black from the suit, yeah, there's no skin tone showing through. So it's cool how they've, incorporated that in to sort of show that, it's not actually a cloth mask or anything. It's the symbiote sort of goo coming off the side of his face there. Anyway, we'll swap that out and see how that looks. So yeah, that gives you a better look at the actual head on the figure. And, it's not my favourite look. I'll probably stick with just, the masked version. But it is cool to have options, and yeah, that does look pretty decent. Just, changes up the look again. Yeah, so again, it's not too bad, but I probably will stick with just the standard head that was already on there. Alright, we'll test out some of the hands as well. And let's try one of his web shooting hands on this one. Alright, now let's see, what can we do with this? Not sure, is that meant to go... Does that go over his head? So I'm not sure exactly the way this is meant to... Does that come around? Yeah, not sure exactly how these loops are meant to go on here. I'm sure that's not right. Anyway, I'll have to play around with it again some other time and see if we can figure that out. There we go. So yeah, these extra hands are just the same, hinge in and out, not up and down. But yeah, so you can get him into a fairly decent sort of web shooting pose, I think. And what do we do? What do we do with this hand? Let's see. Bend him down, do that, get the head up. I mean, it's not perfect, but just a little bit of mucking around, you can get him into something sort of half decent. Yeah, like I said, it's not perfect, but yeah, just quick little muck around, you can get him into a web shooting pose. With a bit more, time and fidgeting with it, I'm sure it would be able to, make it look much better. But anyway, that's basically it for him. I'll get all three of them out, we'll see how they look side by side, and do a couple of comparisons to some of the older versions as well. Alright, so we see now, this is the three that we've just had a look at, and just how they all sort of measure up next to each other. Now, obviously, Kaine here is just standing straight up and down. We've got the others in more of a crouched or, right down sort of pose. But I do believe he looks like he might be the biggest out of all of them. Not just in terms of height, but just his sort of just general bulk and mass in general. I think, yeah, he looks like he is the biggest of them. I'd say 2099 would be next, and then this Spider-Venom does look like the smallest of the bunch. Not just because he's crouching down, but, just his general build just does look a bit smaller, a bit skinnier, I guess. But anyway, yeah, I think, like I've said, none of these are like my absolute best ever, top favourite character design or whatever. But I just think, they're all pretty cool in their own way. And yeah, I think they'll just be more good additions to the Spider-Man display. So, with 2099 and then with this Spider-Venom, I have other versions that are either very similar or the same. Like I said, with 2099, he's an upgrade. So I'll just bring those in and we'll see a little comparison. So for the 2099 version, we've got this older one here. And this was just how I pulled him off the shelf. I already had him in a crouching pose like this. But yeah, he is done in a more sort of almost metallic, sort of purplish colour for the bodysuit instead of the brighter blue. And he's definitely on a much skinnier body as well. And this one is from ages ago, so the articulation is very outdated. It still has all the pin joints and everything. Look, it wasn't terrible for its time, but yeah, this new one is definitely an upgrade from this one. But, they both still represent the character in different forms. His cape on the back is much more clear compared to the pearlescent one over here. Not that that's a good or bad thing, it's just different. So, yeah, I'll still hang on to this guy. He's not, it's not like I'm just going to throw it out now that I've got a new one. But, yeah, he is definitely different, and I do believe this new one is probably a better version. But anyway, yeah, so that's him, just for another comparison. And then for the Spider-Venom, we have, well, I'll shift him over. And then we've got just the classic black and white symbiote suit. Now, again, this is how I put him off the shelf. I seem to like these crouching poses for Spider characters. But anyway, yeah, I didn't realize at first when we were looking at this one, but this new Spider-Venom does seem a lot more glossy. You know, he's got like a shinier finish on there compared to this classic, you know, black and white symbiote suit here. Now, there's a chance, I can't recall exactly which one. This might be when it was the actual cloth version of the suit rather than the actual symbiote. So that would explain why this is a slightly less shiny finish on that one. But either way, I think, you know, it's just, as I said earlier, I just love that classic black and white Venom or symbiote design. I just think, yeah, it looks awesome. And so that's why I thought I'd grab this new one here. Again, it's not necessarily better. It's a little bit different. The white kind of spiky stripes on the hands, the white on the feet that makes it look like sneakers. You know, they're all just different little design touches that they've added in. But yeah, in general, I'm fairly happy with these. As I've said, they're not my favorite designs ever, but yeah, just more cool things to add to the shelf. So, if you made it this far, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it, and stay tuned for more. We'll have plenty more. Well, I've got tons of other figures in the backlog that need to be opened and, you know, reviewed as well. So, yeah, please stick around for those. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up. I know it's probably a little bit of a long one. I'll try and edit this down a bit. If you haven't subscribed yet, then please do. I know everybody says, oh, it really helps, and, you know, it does really help for me personally because it just, yeah, it helps keep me motivated and inspired to keep making these videos. So I really appreciate it. If anyone out there, if you've got friends you think might be into it, please feel free to share it with them. I'd love to have more people join the community and just, you know, tell me what figures you like. Tell me what's your favorite. What stuff do you want to see on the channel? I'm always open to any ideas, any suggestions at all. You know, I'm always open, so please let me know. All right, I've rambled on long enough, so I'll wrap this up. Thank you again. Thanks so much for watching. Really do appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. Cheers. See ya.